I worked 20 years in communication, both in advertising and marketing. One evening, at the dinner table, my son, 16 years old, told me, "Mom, I don't understand the work you're doing. I will never do that job." Well, what he meant by this, that he didn't understand why I was contributing into a society of abundance, pushing for consumption, overconsumption, creating ultimately negative impact to planet and people. He was right. We went then together onto the Fridays for Future demonstration in London, which happened on the 15th of March, 2019. The picture you have here, you can see my son holding this poster he created together with his sister, 11 years old. You can imagine, it broke my heart. That was the moment I decided to dedicate all my energy and efforts and skill set to help as much as I could in the change needed. You can argue that my son had a true impact on me. Well, that's great, but then what do we do? You know, the crisis is right here, and yet it feels so bloody hard to start somewhere, to act meaningfully. What will we reach on our own level? With now a few years' perspective on this topic, I can now say with quite a lot of conviction that individual actions indeed won't be enough. However, they are crucial. And the sum of millions of impactful actions is exactly what we need to create the tremendous change we need to have now, and everyone is talking about. But first, let's come back to the basics, to where we are exactly with the situation. Do we really understand all aspects of it, so we feel enough equipped to position ourselves, understand our role in this story? The first step to change is awareness. What you see here is an illustration showing the mechanisms linked to climate change, causes to consequences. The challenge we've got currently is that we are very much focused on the consequences. I'll explain. If I'll talk to you about heat waves, the record summer temperature we've got right now, and that it will never be as cold as now if we don't change, the over-proportionate wildfires happening in the world, especially in Canada this year, the droughts being more intense and happening in more regions, and I can't go on. Well, you get the picture. Actually, 44% of us recall associate to climate change and global warming, mainly outcomes, mainly those consequences. Only 18% of us are recalling these two causes and only 3% to solutions. So we have some job to do to understand better the causes part. And this is in this short session where I want to concentrate my efforts with you and to understand a bit better. But maybe you know already a lot, and that's great. It's just repetition. So let's concentrate on the first part here of my drawing. Let's start with the greenhouse effect. If you are online now in this recording session, you can try to answer this statement. So we can live without greenhouse effect. Do you think it's correct or it's wrong? Think about it. Pause if you need more time. Well, the response is the greenhouse effect is actually a natural phenomenon. All right? But what here is it about? It's like a blanket on Earth, keeping us at a certain temperature, right? So without it, no life on Earth. It would be so cold, much too cold. So the issue is not about the greenhouse effect. It's about the additional greenhouse effect or the additional feathers in our blanket that we put inside on top of what's already in there and makes us much warmer. So how warm? Since 1850, the Industrial Revolution, we have seen an increase of the average global temperature to plus 1.1 degrees. Now I know it's probably closer to 1.2 degrees. You might think it's not a lot, and yet it is, and so much quicker too. Imagine your body temperature at 37 degrees, increasing by 1 degree or 1.5 degrees. You're at 38 degrees, 38.5 degrees. Well, I don't know you, but I'm sick in bed. That's roughly the same comparison here. Okay, so it is a big deal. Now, let's look at the red line here, which indicates the curve we are very close still today, indicating we will hit the 5 degrees by end of the century if we just do business as usual. Obviously, we don't want that to happen, or life on Earth will be extremely complicated. So let's concentrate on the blue line. The blue line is the one corresponding to the Paris Agreement, an historical step which happened right in Paris during the COP21 in 2015. 195 countries signing a document to stop global warming by 2 degrees. We now know, with the new IPCC report, Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, agreed by almost the entire global scientific community, that those projections are conservative, and we know we need to stay as much as we can close to 1.5 degrees and not beyond, or our adaptation strategy would be difficult to sustain. Okay, so we understand this increase. So where does it come from? Mainly from the combustion of fossil fuels, as you can see here. A bit of deforestation as well, but fossil fuels, especially with an acceleration after the Second World War. Fossil fuels, which are oil, coal, and gas, and for which we are dependent to 80% for everything we do every day. So what do we do every day? Well, we take our car maybe to go to the office. We take the plane to come to this event or to go on holidays. We heat our homes, use air conditioning, depending where we are in the world. Of course, we use our fridges. And that contributes to 20% of the global greenhouse gas emission. We need to eat to feed ourselves. We need agriculture. Well, this sector emits up to 25% of the global greenhouse gas. And last but not least, the industry, which emits the most, 40% of global greenhouse gases. Well, here we are. The climate crisis is unequivocally caused by human activities, says the IPCC report. No way to hide anymore. The truth is on the table and we can't deny it. So what? Well, if we're part of the problem, we're also part of the solution, all of us. A reduction of this magnitude requires a massive transformation from everyone and every sector. What you see here is the drastic change we need to achieve. It's still feasible. We have a window of roughly 7 years to halve our emissions by 2030, which means a decrease of 5 to 7% per year globally of our emissions. So we know what is happening. We know that we are responsible. We know what will happen if it continues. And foremost, we also know what to do about it, that we can stop it. So why are we walking when we should be sprinting? Things are happening. Thousands of solutions are being deployed, but it's not enough. And still not at the pace we need. Talking about sprinting now, let's focus and come back onto the digital sector. The digital sector is part of the industry. In this sector, the IPCC counts a lot of things. Construction from one end, the fashion industry as well in there, and electronic and electric devices. I've got a question for you. So pause here and try to do the exercise. How much does digital contribute to global emissions? Is it 4% or is it more 10%? Well, I guess you went for the 10%. You're probably right, but the last measurement available from 2020 indicates that the sector was at 4%. 4%, which is the equivalent of the civil airline industry. So the projections, though, given in this global study from the Green IT was by that tomorrow, 2025, we will have doubled that number, reaching the 8%. Well, fun fact, the MIT reported recently that apparently the cloud now has a larger carbon footprint than the entire airline industry. We know that we are in a sector in exponential growth, and that number is probably already beyond the 10%. Exponential growth, that means a lot. That means also that we are accelerating our usages, and we are living through a paradox of je vends. That means that the more efficient we get, the more we consume, and we can stop this. All right. So we talk a lot about emissions linked to the digital sector, but that's only one side of the coin, right? Can you notice here on this slide the difference between my two planets? Well, there's surely a mistake here. As to date, don't think it has been proven that we can increase the size of our planet, even though it would be quite helpful and practical. No, but look at how many more devices you have in 2025 around this planet. Okay, so the number of devices are also in the rise. And I have another quiz for you here. Tell me with your right hand how many smartphones, so think about it, how many smartphones you have at home? Everywhere. Think also in your drawer and indicate it with your hand. Try to make a number out of it. With your left hand, think of all the laptops you've got at home, and then indicates it. And if you don't have enough of a hand, then you will need to do that with your hands. Okay. If you were in a room with me, you would probably see that the room is full of hands up in the air and probably doing this. Okay. So we talk a lot of virtuality when we talk about digital. But actually, the real challenge is on the other side of the coin. The materiality needed to power up all what we do every day thanks to digital. And it's so easy to feel like this is not really significant. Our devices are always smaller and lighter, and maybe not the smartphones because they offer more functionalities. And by using digital, we save on travels and other activities, generating themselves emissions. Right? Fair enough. Also, it helps to think that digital will save us from all our problems, fall into what we call the tech solutionisms. Is it really like this? Have we considered all aspects of using digital and growing digital exponentially as we do? First, our biggest challenge lies in the number of consumer equipment in use on Earth. The last number we had suggested 34 billions. Maybe to date, it's more than 40 billions. But then there is also the infrastructure networks to allow the connection. And this is indeed millions of cable above our head, under the sea. We don't see, we don't realize. The connection couldn't happen without data centers spread around the world, huge building hosting thousands of servers. This is materiality. Now, this is just the beginning of what is actually hidden behind our light smartphone, our light laptop. The top of the iceberg, or as this picture suggests, the first layer of a heavy, big ecological rucksack, I would call it. All what I showed you just before, infrastructure, devices, data center, etc., they need to be produced, usually in different and faraway countries from our own, under debatable human rights law. To produce, we need an awful lot of resources here. All right, a lot of them, and rare metals too, which you can only find in very low concentration in the Earth crust. Absolutely, and it needs absolutely gigantic industrial processes with the biggest machine or the biggest baggers you can ever think of, and the involvement of many, many chemical products. All of this is happening mostly in deprived areas already, and the involvement and in atrocious conditions polluting water, air, and soil. Okay, can we still think, after seeing just a snippet here of this ecological rucksack and the emissions produced by the sector, that the contribution of the digital sector, so the so-called IT for green, is all positive? Is it really like this, that it outweighs the negative impacts? Well, I would think it's probably the other way around, and this is why, especially here, we have to strongly question our practices and not being blindsided. Now, it's difficult not to feel overwhelmed by all of this, and therefore, I will use the last few minutes of this talk to understand what we can do about it. And it goes in 3 main steps, so we feel empowered. We just experience a bit of the first part right now, get ourselves informed, open our minds to the challenges that we have in front of us, front-facing them, understanding where the root cause is to understand better the problem and therefore our role. The second is highly important and something we do not practice in business, and yet it is essential, is reconnecting with ourselves, with how we feel about it, with how we feel about the situation. And I really urge you, after watching this session, to just have 5 minutes for you of introspection. Start the sentence "I feel" and just put a word on this feeling you've got. Why is it that important? It's because we are human beings and we are made of feelings. And you will see that if you exchange with colleagues, friends, peers around you, that everyone towards this overwhelming topic has very strong feelings, maybe different, Some are anxious, some feel anger, some are optimistic, but all of those emotions are not negative. There are no negative emotions, but they are strong. And we need and we can capitalize on them. We wake up in the morning with feelings. It's our motto every day. Emotions come from the Latin root emovere, to be in the move. So let's be in the move. And also it will bring hope at the same time, trigger our own movement. All right. So once we've reconnected with how we feel with that, exchange with others, right? You will see that all the people coming to our conferences share all different feelings too. It's really interesting. Then only we are actually ready to act, which, by the way, is the best cure to feel hope. The more you know up front, the more meaningful actions you can actually put in place and create what I call the true impact. So remember what I said at the beginning, individual action won't be enough. However, they are crucial, right? So if you doubted that, I'll let you fight the night with one mosquito. And let's break here the myth of perfection as well. I couldn't have said it better than Clover Hogan here, a young activist, which I really admire. And you can have a look online for her. She does a lot of talks and brilliant talks. We don't need 100 perfect activists, but millions of imperfect ones. Also, we have power and we need to use them wisely, especially you in your position. We are consumer actors. We are citizens. We have the right to raise our voices. What do we do with them on an individual level? But we're also influencer every day. And remember this thing here. You lead by example. That means not what you say is necessarily relevant, but what you do. And you will be followed and create a followership. Your leaders, consider yourself also as change agent in this situation, in this mission. And maybe you are the solutionist too. All right. Finally, the sum of our actions, the sum of millions of impactful and imperfect action will be needed. This is our strength. And this is what Yuval Noah Harari, the author of a brilliant book called Sapiens, tells us here. We differentiate ourselves because not only we can organize ourselves collectively, but we can do so flexibly in large numbers. And on top of that, we are great storytellers. And if you think about it, none other species on Earth has really the strength to influence and create new narratives. So 4 recommendations to you before I finish here. First, be in the know, upskill yourself in this. You don't need to be a scientist, but you need to know a minimum to then understand how you can act better. I have a few ideas here, and there are thousands actually, and no excuse not to tackle this one, because to date you have so many different formats available. With Gail, we can offer workshops in 3 hours, gamified. You can come to one of the conference, the Climate Pitch Conference, which is based on visual storytelling, and I gave you just here a screenshot today. You can also listen to podcasts. You can watch documentaries, read books around this, whatever is your best format. The more you will know about this, the more you will feel confident to talk about it, because talking about it is also important. We have to break the taboo. We have to have the courage to talk about it. Only with that, we will be able to move forward. Then the second pillar here is collaboration, collaboration, collaboration. Forget about competition. Here, the SDG tells us they have 17 goals. The 17th goal is about partnership. Paul Polman, ex-Unilever CEO, is reminding us on how important it is to achieve synergy. We are all facing the same problem. Only by the synergy we will get the pace as well. And it's so much more enjoyable to do it collectively rather than fighting against each other. The third pillar is around challenge the status quo. Make sure that you have also the real thing in place internally. Do you know about your carbon footprint? Do you have any kind of measurements so to understand how you develop and how you transform? A very important one, ask yourself the right question. And I will leave you with Kate Raworth, fantastic economist, author of the Donut Economics Theory. The first question a company should ask themselves are, what is your purpose? Why do you exist? What larger goal are you in service of? And finally, always look for true impact. Always this question of, is it really positive? Does my company achieve more valuable positive impact that it outweighs in negative impact? And just to finish off, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has, from Margaret Mead. Thank you very much. You can find me here.